Africa's $1 trillion AI explosion. The Motivator Show. The internet's most inspirational podcast. Excellent. Gentlemen, welcome to the Motivator Show. Because, of course, this is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. Okay, it's good to meet you both finally. This is the technological revolution. This is happening right now. It's not happening tomorrow or over there or over anywhere else. It's happening right now. We're going through a technological revolution. And what I don't see particularly amongst my own communities, this is wide discussion as to its impact. Its inevitable impact it will have on us. But before I start lecturing, I want to get right into my guest and let's find out who they are, first of all. Now, I believe my first guest is someone I believe we know quite well. Graham, good morning to you. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Sheldon.
Morning.
I'll do Sheldon. Let me do Sheldon. I'll do Sheldon in a moment. Just remind the audience, Graham, your name, where you're from, and I am going to ask this question again of you. Who most inspired you? Because you are an IT expert. Who most inspired you to make you the man you are today? Go ahead.
My name is Graham Ogunleye. I'm a digital strategies consultant in the sense that I find at this stage of my life, I find solutions for common and not so common problems within different stratas of different organizations. I develop training programs, work efficiency programs, and any most related things in relation to technology, STEAM, new technologies, existing technologies, that is traditional technologies, and emerging technologies such as AI. My inspiration effectively was my grandfather. He was a humble tailor, and he effectively had as interesting point of view that if you had a skill and you had a talent that was worthy of being shared, but with obviously he didn't say anything negative. He said you need to exploit it, and you need to share it.
Absolutely.
In terms of the pathway that I've taken in terms of moving forward, my main inspiration has been the late great Ken Robinson. Look him up. He's a real pioneer of alternative thinking and alternative approaches to education, because for instance, I'm not a trained teacher, and all due respect to teachers, I doff my hat to them and what they have to get on with. There's a great importance for folks in industry and private sector, and even from wherever they are, to also get involved in the education of the next generation, and a lot of people looking to shift changes in their careers. That's been my journey, and obviously that's where I'm at the moment.
That's very interesting. I didn't say quite so much last time you were here, so that's been very insightful. And I'll look up Ken.
Well, I've learned from the best, and I've had time to prepare. Now I know how things play out.
Okay, all right. I've got to ask. Whoa, he does his research. Okay. Sheldon, first of all, it's good to have spoken to you earlier this week. It's really useful to understand some of your background ambitions for yourself, family, and community. So I know you, and that's something I'll do, but can I ask you also to introduce yourself? Just say your name, the organization, and indeed, who most inspired you to be the man you are today? Over to you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm Councillor Martin.
Here I am the motivator. I am the motivator right now.
The motivator. Yeah. Unlike Graham, I'm not kind of very concise, as you'll find out. I'm kind of like I'm all over the place. So bear with me. So as I say, I'm Sheldon St. Clair.
Have I practiced?
I've worked in the project management industry for around 30 years, mainly as a contractor. I'm based in London. I live in London, born and bred in Southeast London. But my work has taken me all over the UK. It's taken me to America. It's taken me to Saudi Arabia. I spent a year and a half solving project management problems. So that's basically kind of what I do. I've written books on project management. I've run courses on project management, and I can act as a judge in project management competitions. So all I know is project management. In terms of kind of who inspired me, I can't really think of anybody, to be honest.
That's interesting. Come on.
No, that's not a good thing, actually, because I mean, everybody needs kind of like inspiration from someone, from a mentor, or what have. Most successful people have mentors, which is probably why I'm lagging behind a lot of people. But I am curious. So my skill is basically curiosity, and I can thread different ideas together. I think kind of like from a black man or black person point of view, there's a gentleman that died this year, but he's probably about 100 or what have you. A lot of people haven't heard of him. His name is Neely Fuller Jr. He's based in America, and he's been around since the 50s and 60s. And in my view, a statue should be kind of like erected for him for the work that he's done and the people that he's influenced. But not a lot of people know of him. But Neely Fuller Jr., from a black male perspective and a black person perspective, in terms of how we navigate this world that we find ourselves in, he's somebody that people should read about. But yeah,
just tell us more about him. If I may, I'm going to just probe this a little further. Tell us a little more. Why is he that powerful to you?
He wrote a treatise. He was a security guard in the Royal Mint for about 40 years. But he wrote a treatise called The Code, and his kind of like premise was. I won't share too much, to be honest. But he wrote a book called The Code, and it's really about how black people can navigate in the world that we are in. He identified 9 areas of activities that are problematic for us.
Yes.
And I'm not quite sure about the platform for this program, so I'm not going to delve in too much. But for people who are curious, as I say, this is my first time on the show, and I'd like to come back. But for those kind of people who are interested, he's written a book, firstly called The Code. And his name is Neely Fuller Jr. I say he passed away this year. And he was, I think, I'm sure he was around about 100, yes. But his mind was still sharp as a tack. So, yeah.
I believe you're right, and I'm actually familiar with him as well. And I think you find that these podcasts will honour his name quite aptly. But let me move forward. So, of course, the theme today is the technological revolution, and specifically AI and its impact, both now, near future, and in the long-term future. But it will be quite profound. Okay, and my first round of questions is really quite broad. It's really looking at the first of all the African contribution to the emerging AI revolution. I say emerging because I'm not sure we've achieved supreme intelligence yet amongst these machines, but I'm told if we haven't, it's not far off. And even that term is in the fact I'm able to say that live on air is in itself astonishing. Okay, but what impact will AI and the technological revolution have on particularly African and maybe Caribbean countries? What would it do to them in terms of their development? And I just want to have that initial discussion because this will provide some context for my follow-on questions. What's your initial impressions? You may wish to go first on this one, just to begin to pad it out. Graham's smiling at us in a sage manner of his, okay? He's full of information, you see. There you are. He likes to be very well prepared. So I'm going to go to Graham first, okay? I'm going to let him speak first. Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. To keep it short,
Okay.
effectively, AI it's going to be a leveler. It's going to level the playing field on so many platforms. An example which I will bring to bear with all its controversy and everything that sort of surrounded is, for instance, the issue with the Chinese application DeepSeek.
Okay.
Now,
Hold on.
remember.
Forgive me, Graham. Forgive me. Now, we've got to remember, now, our audience is very wide, okay? I know what DeepSeek is, okay? But before we get to DeepSeek, I just want to, I want you just to prepare the pathway to so the audience can understand what you mean by DeepSeek. Because I know what it means. I'm assuring you, 80 to 90% will not at this stage. Go ahead.
But DeepSeek is a Chinese application or program or AI model, which is the correct term, that effectively moves the goalpost on using AI. Effectively, it's basically taken a step beyond what currently exists today, or existed, say, before DeepSeek. It's taken things forward the next step. And they've been able to do it. The most important thing about what I want to say is that they've been able to do it with a smaller set of resources by building on what has been before. In the old days, when we had the internet.
Yes. Maybe you want to explain ChatGPT, how we got from where we are now to ChatGPT, then get to DeepSeek. Yeah.
Well, what sort of happened before that is that in order to get to ChatGPT, which obviously a lot of people will, and if you're not familiar, please go and look it up and use it. It took a lot of processing power, a lot of equipment, a lot of resources, a lot of money. There was a lot of ingredients that went into that soup to cook it. You know, it's a real big pile, everybody putting their own ingredients in. And what happened is, obviously, there was lots of testing here and there, people trying ingredients here, there, and everywhere, and lots of, top resources were applied to it. But obviously, based on that, a recipe came out of it. Now, based on that recipe, a lot of people have sort of gone away with the recipe and they've been tweaking the recipe. They've not had to do the big search, worldwide for different ingredients, different tastes or whatever. That's already been done. That information is out there. So based on that recipe that's been finally sort of put together, people are now tweaking those recipes to make better versions with smaller footprints for people to sort of use. And that's basically what DeepSeek and others, because it's not only the Chinese, there's lots of other groups, I'll say, that are actually doing it. Now, one advantage of that.
Sorry, let's ask you to pause. Sheldon, did you want to say something at that point?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Forgive me, Graham.
Yeah. So, in terms of ChatGPT, I want to give an analogy to kind of help people understand from my viewpoint, examples I've used. So, if you can imagine that you go to your local library, and your local library is full of books from around the world, full of books, articles, journals, information, knowledge from around the world. And you go to the library and you say to the librarian, I want to know about Paris. The librarian will go to the shelving and will get you books on Paris. Now, if you say, well, okay, that's too many books. I want to know about the left bank of Paris. The librarian will kind of go and get you books and information about the left bank of Paris. Mm-hmm. That's, in a sense, what ChatGPT is. When you talk to ChatGPT, depending on the instructions you give to the librarian, you will get the corresponding knowledge. If you kind of ask a broad and general question, you'll get lots of information. And the key here is to try and refine and to focus on the exact questions or instructions you want. So view ChatGPT as a library containing the books of the world or the information of the world, and whatever you ask it in terms of questions or voice instructions, it will come back to you with the appropriate response. So that's kind of like because I'm a very simple person, that's my kind of like working kind of like definition of what tools like ChatGPT is.
That's very clear. That's very clear. And thank you for that. That's a very useful intervention. Back to you, Graham. Just taking us forward on the implications for DeepSeek. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So using that as an example, because there are many teams, and thank you for that, Sheldon, because obviously that explains what ChatGPT is about. And I hope people take it up and start using it, because that's important. That's my push as far as is concerned. First of all, they were able to develop a cost-effective model. The ChatGPT model, I'm sure Sheldon and yourself, that cost a couple of billion, isn't it, or a few billion to sort of put that all together. Apparently, according to what, inverted commas, they were able to build their model for less than $6 million. Or, obviously, that's what they say. Okay. The model, obviously, like I said, was based off the ChatGPT recipe, and they've been tweaking it. What they've also done is they've also made a lot of it open source.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
What that means is that it's freely accessible to tweak by others.
I mean,
for instance, when you buy
obtain the code. Right.
Yes, you can get into the code, you can get under the hood, you can, tear it apart, put it together. There's a lot of ability to do all that. Because it's also a smaller model, it's refined. It's not you can actually run certain versions of it. Am I correct, Sheldon? On different platforms. For instance, apparently they say you can fit it on a Raspberry Pi, which is like a small mini computer that the kids use. So you can actually run a version, not the full version, but just some part of it on that. I obviously need to look into that. So there's, as well as, large, basically you could have a desktop and you can run it on desktop, which also is true of certain other models which are also out there. But this one obviously was trained off of the large data sets that were obviously available through ChatGPT, and there are also other models out there like Claude. They're quite a lot, at the moment. Also, training techniques with models like this. Obviously, with ChatGPT, there's a lot of you like he explained. You can refine things. You can train it. You can do all sorts of things with the particular model, with this particular model. Remember, there are other teams that are also working on this, and I can guarantee you, because the Chinese have obviously done this, because they noticed it. They mentioned the Sputnik moment, in the space race when the Russians beat the Americans. I can guarantee you that there are lots of other teams, both in Europe and the Americas, the Southeast, South, even further in China, they're actually looking to, create models similar to this. Then there's the global impact, because with these tools, it makes it easier for anybody, anywhere on the planet, so long as you have, as Fela would say back in the day, water, lighting, food, housing. So long as you have those four things, you can pretty much plug in a computer and you can pretty much run it virtually at any stage, anywhere on the planet.
So, in other words, what you're saying is, for African countries and Caribbean countries, to access the sum total of human knowledge is now is next to nothing now. It's very, very cheap.
Next to nothing.
Therefore, your children can have access to the global knowledge base. Yep, as a result of this this development, which is DeepSeek. Fantastic. In other words, the because I have noticed, and I have been using it myself, and what I've noticed is that I'm retaining far more information than I would hitherto. In fact, I've it on my phone right now. The odd questions, I ask a question, provide comprehensive responses. I'm asking up to 100, 200 questions a day now. And I know what I'm effectively engaged in is continuous learning. Yeah, I'm like engineer, as it
That's with
were.
ChatGPT.
Continuous learning. Yeah,
Is that with
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I haven't quite got to DeepSeek here, but most certainly. And it's fascinating. It is fascinating. In other words, it can augment their education systems. Okay, would that be right, Sheldon? Would that be right?
Yeah, I think kind of like in my day growing up, if you want the font of knowledge was your encyclopedia. I think
Such right.
everybody, every
Britannica.
household had one encyclopedia. I had one. It was that thick. It was that thick, but it was a single one. And basically, my homework was done using the encyclopedia. And then, you had libraries or what have you. And then kind of like when, Google came along, people used to get information from Google, from the browser. You type information in, and based on what was there, you get kind of like information out. And again, that can help you with your homework, that can help you with your business, that can help you with your in your work environment. The next iteration of that, as I see it, is tools like ChatGPT, which effectively was built on, as you say, the motivator, based on the knowledge of humanity in terms of journals, in terms of what's on the internet and kind of what can be uploaded as documents. Yeah. I think so. That causes a problem to an extent, is that the information is not always real time. So I think for ChatGPT, I think the knowledge base, it used to be September 2023. But I think it could be April 2024 now. So the knowledge that it kind of accesses is always behind. But effectively, kind of like, in terms of how we use ChatGPT or how we should think about it, think about an Encyclopedia Britannica or all these sort of books. And then you could look at, you can actually forecast where it's going next. Yeah. Now we're typing it in. Next year, you'll be able to kind of like, or you can do now, you can actually talk to it. Voice-wise, and it will give you information. But that's really kind of like what it is.
And just taking what you described further, what I'm noticing, of course, is that I might put in a hypothetical question, a question which isn't simply when did a particular event occur, but I'm asking for some analysis. Okay. So that's the next stage of these learning models, these information models that they are
not the next stage. It's happening now. I do a lot of my work using ChatGPT. So you can, a lot of marketing companies, a lot of sales companies, a lot of, in terms of analysis, a lot of healthcare companies are using ChatGPT to speed up the approval of drugs. Yes. I think there's kind of like new drugs, new compounds that have been developed using the speed of ChatGPT. So it's kind of like, it's really here and now where we can start doing analysis, we can start doing forecasting. It's wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. So it means that not only is it a reservoir in which you can quickly access the knowledge of the world, but it's able to analyze and prioritize based upon your questions, an appropriate response, which now begins. And I believe that's, what's that? AGI, GGI? What's all these GI business I keep hearing about? Please.
Yeah, that's kind of like, that's really kind of techie stuff. I think kind of like, it's just really, it's just, as I said, in terms of our audience, it's just really, it's a device that you can ask questions. If you're a student, for instance, and you're given ethics come into it, and we'll probably talk about ethics later, but what you could do now, a lot of kind of school children in America, for example, are kind of like putting, and even graduate students are putting in their homework questions and getting a response. And you can actually say to ChatGPT, as an example, show me the breakdown, show me your logic, not just kind of like what 1 and 1 is, but how did you arrive at the answer? And in a way, I feel it is a great leveler, as Graham has mentioned. So if, for instance, you go to school, you're kind of like in a classroom of 30 people, you're told about this concept, but you didn't quite understand it, You can go back to ChatGPT in the evening time and you can actually ask it to explain to you
Absolutely.
what you learned in class, and the bits that you were kind of like unclear about, it will explain it to you. Teachers may not have the time to look at the 30 people and their personalities, but parents can actually use ChatGPT with their children. And this is a use case or an example of how it's being used. To actually can sit down and you can work at your own pace. You can work
Brilliant.
at your own speed. Just kind of finally, in SEN schools, they're beginning to kind of like utilize or explore how AI can be used to develop lesson plans or training packs for the different kind of like skill sets of people. So that is kind of like, in my view, wonderful in terms of children-centric learning.
Right. Okay. So just to be clear then, so this just to help the audience to follow what we're describing here. So these great, what we call learning models, the information models, okay, in guise, and they put labels on them, GPT, or now DeepSeek, which is a version, but it's much lower cost. Therefore, as Graham said, it's a leveler. Therefore, because the cost is so low now that the vast majority of people can afford it. It's just like selling cars. If they're cheap enough, then you can sell it to the entire world. If they're expensive, it's only a small number of the world. You know, very similar. Okay, and these learning models are not only the libraries you described it, Access or Encyclopedia, but they're now able, because of the clever software attached to them, able to analyze information and provide prioritized output. Those outputs will be assessed and given to you. And therefore, it can become you can have an interactive conversation with this learning model. Okay, now that I can understand. Okay, so I get it now from a point of view of the African economies and in fact all economies. Doesn't have to be Africa, but let's say Africa for now and Caribbean. So therefore it would augment the education sector. Yes, Graham, go ahead, Graham.
Just to sort of put the analogy in a more,
Okay.
easier context to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Your regular computer that you're using currently right now is simply what we call an algorithm. It's a collection of algorithms. It's a collection of commands and mini programs that basically do the same thing or repeat the same set of sequences, regardless of however it is you've got it set up.
Right.
The ChatGPT is what we call a neural net, because not only does it acquire and store information, it also learns from that information and then builds upon that learning, which is similar to a human brain.
Ooh.
The only difference between the human brain and the neural net is that we have original thoughts. It doesn't. Its knowledge is based upon whatever it's given. That's why, if you remember what Sheldon said earlier, is that the current model that we have for ChatGPT, I think it's pegged at, is it last year? Is it April? You said April 2024, isn't it? They have to peg what it's because it's not like the human brain. Yes, it might be able to calculate things in nanoseconds, but the fact is, its information source or the amount of information is finite in terms of what it can handle. But it's able to process that, to learn from it, it's able to build on it. And that's why it requires human input. So every question, for instance, that you ask, the motivator, you ask them, what is it, 200? You answer 200 questions. Think about it. That's based on the human input that's gone into it, as well as obviously your queries or the questions that you've asked has also helped with the training.
Okay. Understood. Again, I did want to keep focusing on the benefits to the African Caribbean countries. So it will augment their education sectors. Another sector which I know will be a focus, and that's the agricultural sector. Okay. How can AI contribute to augmenting and improving the efficiency and productivity of the agricultural sector? Who wishes to go first? Maybe Sheldon. I'll go to you.
It's been used by a lot of African countries, a lot of farmers, saying, for instance, Kenya and I think it's used a lot in Kenya and Botswana and countries along the East Coast. It may well be in the West Coast as well, but I am familiar with the East Coast. What it can do is kind of like, as an example, is farmers can get information on weather patterns in terms of whether it's going to rain, whether it's going to snow, kind of like what's the weather conditions. And that kind of aids them in the planting of their crops in terms of when they do it and how they do it. AI can be used for drones. I think Amazon have announced that they're trialing the delivery of packages of using drones in Darlington, announced either this week or last week. So therefore, if you can kind of like, if you've got acres of land and they're all in the hills, you've got drones now where you can actually kind of like fly them and get information about where your crops are, how they're doing, whether the animals and predators are around. Two more examples. Climate change is a big issue for the African continent and the Caribbean, all over the world, basically. And kind of, again, the use of AI is used as a predictor model, as a conversation. And then kind of like finally, in terms of developing pesticides and new crops and new seeds, they're using kind of like AI or the processing power of AI to analyze and diagnose and give prognosis on that as well. So agriculture or biodiversity is kind of like, that's a big area of benefit using AI, again, to give you information.
This is very helpful, very helpful. What about the medical sector? Would AI, particularly in relation to African Caribbean countries, would they benefit from using AI in the medical sector for diagnostics or clinical management?
There's a lady called Ola Brown. She's a Nigerian or British Nigerian physician and a tech entrepreneur. And she's kind of like used AI over the last 10 years or so. She's kind of like used AI to improve healthcare delivery in Nigeria. And again, she's involved in policy discussions about AI in healthcare. So you have got kind of like entrepreneurs or people out there who are looking at whether we can use some AI in healthcare. We know that, say Nigeria, for instance, I can only use some examples, I'm familiar with that. They are suffering from a brain drain in terms of doctors and in terms of nurses. A lot of the qualified ones come to England, go to Canada, go to America. And it's really a case of, okay, we know that there's a lot of people out there that need access to healthcare. The facilities aren't there, or the skill sets aren't there, or the talents aren't there. And it's really a case of, okay, how can we use AI to augment that? And kind of like, so someone like Ola Brown, who's a pioneer, she's kind of like many other people are in that field.
Is that the term telemedicine is what's being used for media? That what you mean by telemedicine?
Yes, telemedicine, yeah, telemedicine, yes. Well, telemedicine is obviously, with AI, it'll be slightly different because obviously that's where there needs to be a human, involved in the process in order to obviously make sure that, there's, due diligence is taken into account. So telemedicine is obviously the face-to-face engagement, because I think it's done here too, where you can call up a doctor, they can tell you certain things with regards to your condition over the phone or through a teleconference. During the lockdown, obviously you had there was obviously that opportunity. But with AI, obviously, because remember, there's always the tendency for hypochondria in terms of people wanting to, so I think with AI, you ask it if something is wrong, it still needs to follow through with the with the professional involved. There needs to be a person, there needs to be a human component to whatever treatment or to whatever solution or suggestion needs to be in place.
Yes.
So that's one reason why the human element is not going to be taken out of, even not, we're talking about the medical now, but in other areas too, there always has to be humans involved, regardless of whatever technology is being used, how it's being used. There's going to be, so that brings us to another important, that AI isn't going to replace anybody.
Oh, now
But
I'm sure about
someone using AI will. Yeah, somebody using AI will. If somebody else finds a way to implement AI in the job that they're supposed to be doing, they're going to bounce the person that, for instance, who doesn't use AI. That's what's going to happen. So in this case, obviously, medical professionals are going to have to embrace the use of AI, just like yourself, sir, in your role as a counselor, where you have to deal with almost, a wide range of issues and this thing. Medical professionals are going to have to obviously look at the wider implications of what, because they're the ones with the trained set of skills, and that goes for all other industries too. The same thing. We're all doing it in what we do. So that's an important element that AI does. It turns opportunity. It's throwing up loads of opportunity because there's lots of disruptions in key areas. Roles like industries like insurance, accountancy, lots of industries where they utilize repetition in terms of data. Basically, a lot of those roles will be given to AI, which means people in those roles need to find ways to retrain to either support those programs, or support the use of it in terms of what they're doing. And in that case, they'll be fine, because next gen, I think, from what I hear, a number of industries are now sort of phasing out certain jobs, like entry-level jobs, in lieu of implementing AI solutions. Now, while obviously it might look like there's a lot of, that some people are being left out, all it simply means is that there's opportunities on the ground for people to get training in those key areas in order to fill out those roles. We had the same thing, for instance, when 3D printing
just for a moment. I really want to keep focusing on the sort of African Caribbean countries, how they can embrace AI and use it to leapfrog a number of stages that have occurred in Britain. In other words, to set up really efficient health sectors, for example, even more efficient education sectors, for example, develop new governance of their cities themselves, so AI overview, and so there's so much up, because I want to really keep focusing on why African countries, Caribbean countries, should embrace AI. And I'm confident that the policymakers are going through training, I'm sure about that, understanding how they should embrace it, but also then going to the point where I think you're going on to now, the implications for ordinary folks like us, in other words, okay? It will mean that it's possible that the jobs we currently hold, okay, regardless of my other position, the skills that I possess, okay, may well be taken over by a machine. Sheldon, is that right? They could take it over, and I'd have to learn a new skill. Is that right, or not?
Okay, well, looking at the last question you asked, let me tell you some of how I use AI in my jobs. I view AI as a productivity tool. That's kind of like really where people, in your audience or the wider community, individuals can actually use AI. So, for instance, I've built my own tool, but to help me. But we look at, say, ChatGPT. So if kind of like you receive emails, you can actually put that email into ChatGPT, give it some kind of context, some background information, and say to it, "Please give me a response. How should I respond to this email?"
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want the email to be kind of like I want it to be engaging, or I don't want email to be negative. You can actually give ChatGPT a context, and it will give you a response, and then you can copy and paste that response into
Sheldon.
and send it.
If I may, at that point, that almost implies that the machine has consciousness, doesn't it?
Well, that's a philosophical debate. I did, in terms of what comes first. Is man creative, or can AI teach itself? I probably disagree with what Graham was saying about one of the advantages that we have over machines is that we're creative. Creativity is a learned behavior. So
Original
so
thought.
What do you mean by original thought? Babies learn from their parents, and then they expand on that. Computers can learn from the information that's given and extrapolate on that. But I don't want to get into that kind of philosophical debate at this moment. But certainly the way it was kind of like it was programmed, it enables you to think and feel. So I use it to email responses. I use it to produce documents. So in terms of, like I say, working project management, so I can go to a meeting, I can record that meeting, I can get a transcription of that meeting. Say, for instance, it's developing a new project. We want to see whether that project is a goer or a non-goer. I can take that transcription, and then I can say, ChatGPT, take that transcription, here's my document template, and please kind of like use that information, use other stuff that I've given you, and fill out or complete this document.
Wow.
Now, in terms of let's say I use that in that way. So what used to take me days and weeks to get back to and lots of meetings to get back to the user, I can go to a meeting, an hour meeting, and that afternoon I've got a draft copy, and next day we can have a discussion and then we can refine it. So from a productivity tool. And then finally, I create, in terms of kind of like my business, I create websites and landing pages and sales and marketing copy. Now, ChatGPT can help me in that way, even in terms of, this is what I want to do, this is my target audience, what font size or style should my header be, my tagline be, what information. So in terms of the font size, in terms of the font color, in terms of kind of like all the information, what pictures should I have? What background colors should there be on my website? You can use ChatGPT as a conversation tool to help you develop that. And then finally, companies I used to work with, again in the marketing and sales departments, they use a marketing tool or content creation tool to help them come out with copy. It saves weeks and days. So the throughput and the response time, it's not necessarily a copy and paste, but certainly you're creating a draft earlier and having conversations earlier. So in project management, I believe it will be kind of like a godsend. So that's how I use it. And so therefore people in Caribbean or in Africa, what have you, an African continent, can use it in the same way as well.
Thank you for that response. It was very clear. And I'm bound to say what I'm about to say. That is, of course, I recognize that wages have, for the most part, stagnated. They've gone up, but slowly. Okay, or maybe not. Okay, there you are. Indeed. But productivity has improved because of AI. So wages go to you and I, as it were, and the productivity goes to the owners. Okay. Now, is the AI? I've got to ask this question as an aside because I'm, my background, It's likely, Graham said at the beginning, it's a leveler, but would it not exacerbate the income and wealth disparity? Because we are producing even greater productivity for those who own, but those who are on a salary, their salaries are being stored, not increased. Is there an opinion from you both? This is the social impact of AI and the technology.
That's called capitalism. That's the world that we live in. Kind of like in terms of productivity or the benefits of that, it's always gone to the owners. It's never gone to the people doing the work. But I'll ask you a question properly. Go first.
When the Luddites, the same thing was said when the Luddites did what they did. The same thing was said when the internet came about. Same thing was said when, throughout history, when man worked out that, I could use the horse, I could use the bow and arrow. These things are obviously discussions, beyond where it is
I
we're at.
understand.
The thing about AI and anything, it's like, for instance, when the car or the train got introduced, there were obviously changes in society that happened, that took place. That's, these things are going to happen. The important thing that we're obviously trying to work out now is this: how can we get people to quickly adopt and benefit from this technology to either develop businesses, opportunities for themselves, retrain, so that, for instance, they can actually ask for higher wages. Like the example I was going to give with regards to the 3D printing stage when it came in, old engineering company with an old team hired this young whippersnapper who understood about 3D printing. And effectively, they were trying to do a heating duct, a cooling system for an air conditioning plant. And it was very awkward how it needed to get done and whatever it is. And this guy proposed, how about we 3D print it? And then his proposal to 3D print it was very unconventional in the way, the shape, because obviously they were able to fit it in the shape. And then people, because, we can't fabricate. I said, well, no, you're not going to fabricate. We're going to 3D print it. So it's about having a different mindset and a different paradigm to understand and create solutions. Like, for instance, in Africa, you mentioned in a previous discussion, not here, obviously, was regards to the implementation of using exit phone banking happened in the third world before it came to the first world. They tested it out in Kenya, they tested it out in Nigeria, they tested it out in Ghana, in most of these countries. Now, obviously, that was thinking outside the box. What AI allows us now to do is, on an individual level or on a local level or within the community level, you can think outside the box on a lot of solutions that you want to do based on what you've done. It's like what happens with a simple thing. There's this lady came through, speaks Turkish, only Turkish. We were able to have a communication using ChatGPT. She simply typed what she wanted, wrote it down, and I asked it to translate it. It translated it. A few minutes later, she was sitting down there. Something that we had to go find somebody. We had to phone somebody up. Within a space of 20 minutes, I got her sitting on the computer, working out recipes for the next for her daughter's party, whatever it is they were doing, which was quite simple. You've also got, for instance, another example of how AI can be really beneficial, and the power that I saw. There was this lady, she had an issue, whatever it was the case, but she spoke about 3 or 4 different languages. Her primary language wasn't English. So I simply told her to go to ChatGPT and simply just write in whatever language. And when I looked at it, it didn't make a lot of sense, because there was Hungarian, there was Arabic, there was English, and I was okay. She wrote it, but ChatGPT came up with a perfect English summary.
All right. Okay.
Based off of the multiple languages that she spoke. So, for instance, our people speak. Not a lot of people speak. Like, for instance, depending on whether francophone or anglophone, their primary language might not be, the language of general communication or formal engagement. This, for instance, will help formalize and express ideas properly. Because I've been in a situation whereby, for instance, I've heard somebody say something in terms of what they want to say in terms of translation, but when it gets translated, it's never really the same. As far as that is concerned. So there's lots of opportunities with AI for personal development, as well as what we call developing.
In that case, Graham,
refocusing energy.
I'm going to take us forward now. I want to think about the dads, the mums, the grandfathers, grandmums, the aunties and uncles and so on, who have children or young people in their midst. Okay, and they've just heard what you've just said. They can see the implications of the technological revolution that we're going through right now. Thank you, Sheldon, for that. Absolutely, we're going through it right now. Okay, but you're still speaking in a language which is still not clear to them, because a term that has been used, and I used it in the intro video, is STEAM. Now, I know what that means in today's context, as it were, but in common parlance, it's not well known. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put something on the screen. Let's see if this works first of all. Not that one. Can I get this to work? Not this one. Okay, not that one. Go back. I want to put something on the screen, and I want to try to emphasize why what I'm about to put on the screen is important for those who are watching. Okay, it's not going to work, unfortunately. Never mind. Oh, I can't do what I want to do. Never mind. I want you to explain what this acronym means, STEAM. What does that mean? And what does it stand for? Or do you want to, or just Sheldon?
I've heard the term, but I can't remember what it stands for.
Come on, Graham, it's over to you. Oh, have we lost him?
Right, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and maths.
That's right. Yep. Okay.
Science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. That's all it simply refers to. And it simply refers to the importance of why they need to be worked on together. Because obviously in the past, back in the day, all these particular areas of human endeavor were sort of separate entities. In most schools, especially here in the UK, there's a lot of emphasis on one or the other or this or that. What's not been the case, and I think this is something that's happened within the last 10 to 15 years, that STEAM, before it used to be STEM, art wasn't even involved in it. It was STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths. But then obviously people realize, hang on, we have to think about the creative and the artistic component of this, and it's a big part of everything that goes on. You can't design a chair without obviously looking at the aesthetics of it. You can't design even the chair for people to sit on without, for instance, looking at how people are shaped. The differences in tastes and motivations and stuff like that. Oh, the colors blue, the yellow. So all those things are part of the process. So it simply means now that people are thinking in terms of firms, projects, discussions, or even the products or technologies, with all this in mind, and they're trying to get, both young and old sort of focusing on
there. So thinking about the guardians, the parents, and so on. So we're thinking about their children, those in their care. So science subjects, technology, engineering, art, and maths are critical to the technological revolution. So I put it on the screen deliberately so that parents and others can see it and they can understand it. And if they're in school, they can ask questions. If my son or daughter, how are they performing in science? How are you providing technological education here in the school? Do you have an engineering aspect to the school? Art, how are they responding to your maths class? And is it the type of maths that will prepare them for the world of the future? Okay, so those are the subjects for those of you who are interested. There you are. Okay, now let me go back here. If I can go back to my show. There we go. Oh, there we go. Oh, I can't get this off now. This is going to be fun. And what I want to do at this point is really just now focus on why this is important. I'm going to keep on the screen for just for a moment longer, but I really want. Oh, we've lost him again. Never mind. Just want to talk about how we prepare the next generation, Sheldon. How do we prepare the next generation? Okay. What would you
low-hanging fruit, or a quick win, I think, because this is how I learned it, is by watching YouTube videos on those particular subjects. There is a wealth of information on AI and how AI can be used in schools, how AI can be used in STEMs, practical examples of how people can use it. I think certainly in future shows, we can probably demonstrate some tools and show people how it actually works. People may have heard of these things, but kind of like showing them in a demo will probably be useful to give people wrap their head around it. But certainly in terms of STEM subjects, in China, for instance, they teach AI in schools. A lot of the subjects is taught using AI teachers, AI assistants. So that's already started. I think there was a kind of like it's good and it's bad, but but certainly for students or people at work or parents, go onto YouTube. Type in a question, beginner's guide to AI. I don't understand AI. How can I use AI to help me with my maths? What is engineering? What are the different types of engineering out there that utilize AI? So I would ask people, and this is how I learned about AI. I've kind of like been in that business probably since 2019, but certainly I used YouTube a lot, just watching videos or listening to videos. So that's a great way to get introduced to the subject and to find out about it. And then from there, you can say, okay, then there are 20 different people talking about AI. There's all these channels. I like this guy, or I like this lady. And then you can follow them, follow the videos that they kind of like. That's how I kind of learned. And that's how I think people, that's a good entry point in my view.
Thank you. So it's clear now that these are the core subjects behind the technological revolution. I'm just going to say them again. So it's that's science, technology, engineering, art, and maths. Okay, those are the core subjects. And you're recommending YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're recommending YouTube as an important reference source. Once you identify a teacher that you resonate with, who you can learn from, and I agree with that. No doubt about that. What about the teachers? What do you think teachers? Because you're a project manager, and if you were asked the project managers, what would you say to these teachers who may not have been, or most certainly have not been brought up in this current phase of the technological revolution? What would you be saying to them?
I know that in America, I don't know about here in the UK, but certainly in America, teachers are using AI to develop lessons plans.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that can quite easily kind of like be done. They're using in the Caribbean, they're using AI to help them deliver the content, so to suggest different activities for them to run. If they've got problems with a particular student or parents,
yes,
how can I navigate this? Kind of like, how can I improve the communication between a particular student or a particular parent? They use AI for that, and again, there's lots of reading material, there's lots of academic papers on this, and there's lots of YouTube videos about kind of like how you can use AI in education. Just two more things. In the Caribbean, in America, but it's been used in the Caribbean as well, where they're kind of teaching. I think it's like AI for primary school students or AI for coders. There's lots of American companies that are developing tools to utilizing AI to help in schools, and the Caribbean are using that quite extensive. There's lots of software out there, lots of in terms of there's lots of information out there. There's lots of shows out there on how to use AI in the classroom, and there's courses that are available as well to aid teachers to kind of progress up the skill and the knowledge curve to deliver it. But it has been, and I say China's so advanced now in that they can actually sense, it's a bit scary, but they can actually sense in the classroom whether children are being distracted or whether children are looking out the window rather than doing their work. I won't get into that in too much detail, but that's they can do that now. And a teacher can monitor, so I was like monitoring the heart rate or the attention span of they can deliver they can deliver kind of like solutions to that. It is scary, kind of like what the Chinese education system is like, but they're the ones that's going to be kind of like winning the AI race.
They most certainly are.
Well, they are winning it. They are winning it at the moment, to be honest.
Yes. So preparing this generation, we must pay attention and ensure that they are taking the right subjects. Okay. Now, if we at home are providing the right facilities that they can access these subjects and study with our supervision, of course. But the internet can be quite scary at times. With our supervision. Okay. But it's essential that we do so. We must pay attention to this. Okay. And I suppose finally, as we kind of wrap up now, what would be your words, your final advice, both to parents, editors, politicians, and others in respect of this technological revolution, and specifically AI and its potential? What would you say to them, both with enthusiasm and some caution, I'm sure? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing I say to my project manager. I coach project managers as well, and the same thing I'm saying to them is the same thing that I'll say to everybody else. You've got to learn about the subject. It's kind of like, last year, for instance, a lot of project managers were resistant to using AI because it's like, well, I'm creative. I don't need this thing. This thing is stunting my creativity. It's cheating. It's morally wrong. All that sort of stuff. That was just last year from project managers. This year, it's a case of, okay, how can I use it? My company has told me that they're invested in AI. So therefore, it's now in my interest to learn about it. It's no longer a nice to have or I volunteer. So AI is with us. I think kind of like one of the points that Graham mentioned about AI being a leveler, I believe in the short term and medium term, that is correct. In any disruption, people who jump on the bandwagon first are the ones that are going to benefit materially. Yes. In the that's in the short and the medium term. In the long term, as you've mentioned, we will get back to it will be standardized, and we will have a factory. And we'll have factory workers, and therefore prices and wages will be depressed. In terms of generating profit to the owners. So that will happen in the long term. We are a factory-driven country or world. Whether it's information, whether it's knowledge base, it's still a factory. Even working in a law firm where you've got all these high-tech lawyers. They're all doing the same thing. It's all standardized. It's a factory. Yeah. So we will kind of like get that eventually. But for now, it's really about how can I acquire knowledge and how can I utilize it in my work. I think that's probably the first thing. How can I utilize it in my work? How can I utilize it in school? How can I experiment? So I think in the UK government, their policy now is to have AI in everything. That's kind of like, that's government policy now, and that's what they're pushing. So it's really about, okay, start off small. How can I utilize, in terms of an Excel spreadsheet, if you're an accountant, you can use AI. I think kind of they're saying that accountancy will be impacted a lot by AI, to be honest, bookkeeping, VAT, that sort of stuff.
Wow. This is just the start of a series of podcasts on the impact of this technological revolution and specifically AI. This is just to whet the appetite of my audience. Okay, but at least we've started the process. There are tens of thousands of my audience out there who I know. As far as they're concerned, the mobile phone is the sum total of their AI experience. But in fact, it will get into every nook and cranny of this society. Most certainly, and Graham is quite right, in Africa and the Caribbean, the technology, access to technology, the price will decline significantly, but the benefit will rise exponentially over time. I suspect that in a future podcast, we'll be referring to AI entities as they do appear to have this self-awareness. Am I wrong in saying that or not?
I think in the long term, that may well happen. I know that, for instance, I did myself and my business partner, we did a demo probably late last year, and a member of the audience was a psychotherapist, and we were demoing a tool called Hume, Hume, and it was a speaking AI tool, but it was able to sense your breathing patterns, the questions you ask, your voice inflections,
Right.
and it was able to teach itself to respond based on what it sensed was your emotions. Now, this psychotherapist was freaked out because he started asking. He was at the back of the classroom that we've done in the workshop, and gradually he was coming closer and closer to the laptop, and he started asking questions as if he was a patient.
Right. Yes.
And the answers that was coming back to him, it was like, yeah, this is correct. And he's a trained psychotherapist, but yet he was able to converse in a patient psychotherapist, and he's asking all these kind of like random questions, and again based on the tonality and the emotions that this software was picking up, it was responding in the appropriate way. Now that's fascinating. Well, he freaked out basically, but that's kind of like that's fascinating.
Here's my last question to you. I know this is one that is a recurrent theme in the discussion I've had with members of the audience, and this is this theme. They're always concerned about their jobs first of all and had to be reskilled. That's for sure.
And it should be, yeah.
What is the underlying fear? Is AI taking over the world? Is that nervousness, hesitation? After all, if they develop a consciousness, as it were, or self-awareness, will they take over the world? What would your response be to such it's just below the surface, that underlying concern from the masses?
I think kind of like AI ethics is a big thing. I think there's a Kenyan named Joyce Mutinda, and she's an AI ethicist and researcher, and she works on AI ethics, policy, and capacity building in Africa. And she's involved in with organisations promoting ethical AI practices in the continent. So there are kind of researchers out there in Africa that I'm aware of, kind of like who are looking at that question. The UK government is also interested in that as well. So I think kind of that is the next thing, the next big thing that governments and policy users and even people who work in companies, they are looking at the ethics side, of AI. This wasn't something that was on anyone's radar, say 2 years ago. Because you had a tool, you wanted to use it. I can save time, I can save money, yes. I can make money. Yes. But in the last year, there are people and organizations involved on the ethical side of AI. So, and there's a debate in terms of, okay, if we spend too much time on the ethics side, then we're stopping our creativity to develop new tools. But then if we don't kind of like look at that, because even the ethics in terms of there is a bias at the moment in AI. If you talk about, okay, black people, I know that's last year, I'm not quite sure about this year, but if you kind of talk about kind of like, say, black people and tell me about them, because of the information kind of like, or the bias in AI model like ChatGPT, then it comes up with a thug, or it kind of like, it shows black people in a negative way. And there are lots of African researchers that are involved in looking at that as well, and there's people working in Google and Meta and those organizations that are looking at that. But it's really a case of, okay, should we be scared? Well, that's probably an individual thing, but certainly it's not going away. And it's really about, okay, it's not going away. It's certainly going to ramp up. People will talk about it even more so in the next 2-3 years. And it's, okay, how can I take advantage of this from a money point of view? How can I take advantage of this from a work point of view? And how can I take advantage of this in a schooling, whether you're at secondary school, primary school, at university point of view? It's really a case of people are taking advantage of that. So for now, how can I do the same? And I just hope that, once I've made my money, then people would have built in guardrails on the ethical side. But we haven't got. I don't think we have that luxury in the Black community. I think it's a case of it's there. It's an opportunity, as Graham said, to level the playing field, and it's really about us taking advantage of that, and then leave other people to look at the negative aspects of that. That's not our business. Let's make money. Let's be successful.
In other words, we should embrace it. In other words, we need to embrace it and be on the front line, as it were. Okay, I agree with you.
And there's lots of us out there. I think as an example, just one example. So apologies for that. The motivator. There was a black. He's a Nigerian guy. He's a lawyer. And last year, he secured £26 million Series A funding from venture capitalists, because he developed an AI app for lawyers. So rather than say paralegals or what have you, kind of like going into and having spending hours and hours on going into libraries and researching things, he's put all that knowledge. It cost a lot of money, but he put all that company knowledge, all the books and what have you, in an app, and now the people in the firm can kind of like interrogate. They can find case law a lot quicker. So again, from a productivity point of view, that's really how it's been used at the moment. From a productivity point of view, there's black people there who are making. Sorry, I'm very business and money orientated, so I look at that side. But there's a lot of black people who are that we don't know about. We don't know their names, but they're black people, young people, not old people, young people are seeing this. How can I become successful quicker in life? And they're using AI to help them.
I'm going to track a few of them down, get them on the podcast to talk about.
Brilliant! That's a great idea. So that's to get like a real life case study, real life. This is how I'm using it.
Yes, and we need and just planning forward. And this is a series of podcasts we'll do on this subject. So AI being initial, I would of course look at these how it impacts economies, both in terms of managing cities, which I alluded to earlier on, impact on healthcare being another one that would look at, the education sector being another. Okay, our AI, it enables people to, have their own onboard, and you said it, psychotherapist, as it were. You need someone to talk to, and that's possible. The potential is quite astonishing, and therefore the fear which I sense just below the surface is unfounded. It is unfounded. It can transform the quality of our lives. I think that's the message I want to communicate. I think that's fair. Would that be fair? I think that'd be fair.
I would agree with you. Yes.
All right. Good. In that case, we lost Graham anyway, but thank you. Thank you for this. It's been extremely helpful. I know this is, it's as I said, for quite a number of the audience. It's they're aware, but not had it explained as you've been able to explain its implications. And those with children or grandchildren or cousins, nieces and nephews will now understand that they need to pay attention to those STEM subjects and look forward to what are the careers that their sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, cousins are likely to be able to acquire with the right skills. And that's a separate podcast in itself. What are the skills and what are the jobs that will fulfill those skills?
I've got, myself and Graham, we've got lots of information on that topic. So I would invite kind of like the audience, if they have got particular questions, that they can put it into the chat, and or get back to yourself, and that could form the basis for future. There's lots of information out there, lots of kind of available information. McKinsey, for instance, produce quarterly reports. The Gardner Group, PwC. There's lots of academic papers. Because when I first started, like everybody else, kind of like I was low hanging fruit, but I've kind of, because I've been in it a bit longer than other people, I've moved up the value chain. So my source of information, I'm looking at where you get your information from, and that's kind of like, and that's helping me in the work that I do. But certainly, I would invite people to kind of like contact you, reach out to you, and say, well, I didn't understand this, I didn't understand that. Can you expand on this? What are the kind of like, I'm a hairdresser, I'm an accountant, I'm a counsellor, I'm a teacher, kind of like, how can this kind of help me? And that could form the basis for future meaningful topics.
Thank you very much. I would encourage the audience to leave a comment. Don't just leave. First of all, I'd like a thumbs up. Would be great. Give us a thumbs up, okay? Thumbs up. But leave a comment, okay? And we will respond to all of your comments. Reach out. And I'm assuring you, this is a series of podcasts, and we will delve into this subject in depth. But it'll be delving not only from a purely academic perspective, it will be from a everyday person's perspective. Okay, its impact upon you and how you can take full advantage of what is an ongoing revolution. It is very much a social revolution. Sheldon, thank you very much. You've been
thank you very much for inviting me onto this show. It's brilliant.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
I don't want to give you this roaring applause. Well done. Thank you so much. The power of technology. There you are. Good day to you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Watch the next show and don't forget to subscribe.